I'm Brandon McKinney. I'm an artist, illustrator. I've been a storyboard artist in television animation for a long, long time. Batman Beyond was my first show. Has everybody seen an episode? 5 years ago, I think it premiered. And before that, I would do comics and book illustration. I studied animation in college. I was lucky enough to go to UCLA, and they have a really great film and animation program, which I highly recommend. And drew comics for years, knew a bunch of artists. One of them went to work for WB, and they said, hey, they're looking for board artists, and gave me a test. And I had to learn really, really quickly how to change from drawing comic books to drawing story. So I worked on Batman Beyond. How about Static Shock? Do you guys ever see it? Yeah. That was my second job. Justice League Unlimited. A little show called Ben 10. Then there was The Batman, which ran for about a show called Secret Saturdays. It ran for a season or two. It's really good. Look it up on the internet. Avengers. And Raven. Show called G.I. Joe Renegades. They tried to bring G.I. Joe back to kids' cartoons, and I don't know. It was a tough one. Military and
I don't.
Microphone. Yeah. I'm trying to yell real loud. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll save my voice too. Lots of Scooby-Doo stuff. The most recent thing was Scooby-Doo meets Crypto. There was Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. Lots of direct-to-video movies, as well as Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Transformers, the 3D animated show Transformers Prime. Hulk and the Agents of Smash for a bit. Transformers Robots in Disguise. And then I did this for a long time. You guys ever seen any of the DC superhero girls shorts? Right? This is where I got my first chance to direct episodes, which is instead of doing storyboards, you're supervising other storyboard artists and fixing boards and making notes. Netflix had a Stretch Armstrong series that was really cool. It was a good update. And then this little show called Harley Quinn. Yeah. Which, it's going strong, 4 seasons in. And I started from episode 1, and I've been working on the show since. And I've also gotten to direct a few episodes of Harley. How many of you, by a show of hands, have watched the show? Okay. Do you guys know Pipe Man? Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. Thank you. He's getting his own spin-off series. It's just as funny as Harley. Then I've also worked on Star Trek Lower Decks. Sweet. Subscribe to Paramount Plus and watch it all, please, because I enjoy working on this show too. And then Solar Opposites for there's been a lot more where I've done one episode here or worked on this movie. If you look up my name in IMDb, you can see all 80-something shows I've been lucky to work on over the years. So, like I said, I used to teach storyboards at the Art Institute in Tampa, Florida. I lived there for a little while. This is kind of part of the class that I would show them. Storyboards are an example of sequential art. I could define it, but I want to see if anybody here wants to take a stab at defining what sequential art is. Have at it. Can you say it louder? That's super close. So it is a sequence of images, or a series of images that when you read them in sequence, they convey an idea or tell a story. And there are examples of sequential art over time. I should have numbered these. Some of the earliest sequential art, right, is ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, right? It's a sequence of images and words together. Then we have an instruction manual. You know, think of you've all bought IKEA furniture, right? Those are really good examples of sequential art, right? Because they show you what each piece looks like, what part goes where, and there's words that tell you what to do. This is my other favorite. Those airplane safety manuals.
Yeah.
This is sequential art, 100%, right? It's first you grab the mask, then you put the mask over your mouth, and then you save your kid, right? But it is a sequence of images that when you read them in order, they convey an idea. And then the sort of classic ones are, hang on, let me go back to, it's just got a cycle between those. I can't work in Apple well at all. So bear with me.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Is the industry standard Apple, or can you use your own equipment?
So I work from home and I use a PC. This is a good question, and I'm going to take questions at the end of it all, but let's jump in. At the offices, it's usually Apple. Apple is more for art and creative stuff, and PCs tend to be more programming, gaming. But I switched from Apple to PC, and I can't stay away. So comic strips are also sequential art, except when you screw up the name. You've all seen comic strips like Garfield or The Far Side, comic books. This is, you read the panels in order, right? Top panel, then down here, then there, and storyboards like this. What was the name of this movie? It's like a stop motion movie. Does this look familiar to anybody?
9.
There you go, number 9. I should have guessed from that. I found these online, and I thought they were just beautiful examples of storyboards. So storyboards are sequential art. What they are basically is an instruction manual to give to the animation department to do all the hard, right? Not that storyboards are easy, but animation, you're doing 8 or 12 or 24 drawings for every second of movement. In storyboards, we're just setting up the shot and maybe adding a few key poses. So let me start by showing you an example of materials we would use for an episode of Harley. This is from season 2. And sorry, this was an episode that Harley and Ivy weren't in at all. It was just Batman and Bane. And so we kind of got to do our version of Bane breaking Batman. But every show starts this way, with a script. You can start by designing the characters or the backgrounds or whatever, but you don't jump into telling a story until it's all written out. And that's a separate department, the writers. They'll describe where stuff is happening, basically what's going on and what the dialogue is. So the storyboard artist's job is to turn these words into visuals, into images. That's a process called visualization. You've all read a book of prose, right? That's just words. Whether it's a detective story, a fantasy story. But as you're reading, are you also picturing what's happening in your head? Right? That's kind of a good author can really bring the story to life in your brain. You're doing a lot of the work, right? So our job is to read the script, get those pictures in our brain, and then put them down on paper or on a screen. So this should be. See if I can blow this up anymore. So this is how the storyboard starts. Sorry, I wish these were a little bigger here. There we go. You can zoom in. Now, I wish I could take credit for drawing this section shot. A lot of shows these days are taking advantage of 3D models. SketchUp. If you heard of the SketchUp program, it was Google's, and then, I don't know, it was somebody else. We have a great team of background designers who build every environment as a SketchUp model. And that saves us a ton of time. Because before 3D models, we had to use perspective and we had to draw every background by hand, and that takes a lot of time. Now, we open up SketchUp, we move the camera around to get the right angle, and then we take a screenshot and drop it into the storyboard. Remind me if I forget when we get to the questions and answers. I'll tell you more about the software we use to do storyboards. Okay, so this is where I need you guys to bear with me. I have clumsy hands, but I'll try to go through. So here's our sequence of images. We're going to cut to this shot of somebody loading a truck. All right, that's not going to work out. And let me zoom out. All right, so you see we're cutting to a closer shot inside the truck. Then we're cutting back to outside. And wow. There. Are you guys still able to kind of read each panel, even in the back there? It's kind of small. I'm really sorry about that, you guys. But here, one of his buddies was pulled up off screen, so we're going to cut through one shot outside the truck. Do you see how I'm drawing kind of him standing, then walking, and then that's where he ends up? Then we're going to cut to a more medium shot, right? And Batman's rope is going to grab our guy, pull him up and off screen. That's what that, there's an arrow that says OS off screen. Then we'll cut to a medium shot of Batman pulling the guy up. And the bad guy points, Batman turns his head, and then we'll cut to an over-the-shoulder shot. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see we also point out camera moves. All right. Okay, trust me. Here, we've got the white box, that's the frame, and then a small box in here because the camera is going to zoom in on a sun. Right? So that's part of the storyboard artist's job as well, is if the camera's going to pan from left to right or up and down, or if it's going to truck in or truck out, also called zoom in, zoom out. It is one of our many tools to tell the story better. If we want to bring focus to something, we'll zoom in on it. Then we're going to cut to a point of view shot. We ripped off Iron Man, Tony Stark, but this is Batman inside his suit board. And this is sort of his point of view. So it's got this red filter, and it's zooming in on Bane. And we cut back to Batman, who throws our guy off screen, and then the camera's going to truck out as Batman fires his boot jets and zips toward the camera and off screen. Then we'll cut to this upshot behind Bane, where Batman is going to fly up to him. The camera will truck out as he settles and lands. We cut back to that medium shot of Bane. And then the fight begins. Batman hits the boot jets, punches him once, twice, 3 times, knocking Bane back. And then we cut to him close on Bane as he spins back, spins, and then he settles. Then Batman flies in, only this time Bane punches him and gets zapped. And react. Then we go back to this kind of wide down shot of Batman. I'm not going to go through the whole board like this. A close-up, which is always good to convey dialogue. Close-up on Bane reacting to what Batman said. Then Bane kind of, he does something we call an antic, which is short for anticipation. It's the movement before the jump, or the movement before the punch, right? You don't just do that. You kind of pull back and then swing, or you kind of crouch before you jump. But he'll smash into Batman. Then we're kind of looking over his shoulder, over Bane's shoulders. They're flying through the air. Batman's getting the crap beat out of him. They smash into some containers. So yeah, our job, all that was sort of written out in the script. All the dialogue was written out in the script. Not every action was. And that's one of my favorite parts of storyboarding is, especially in animation, a lot of times writers will say, big fight scene, and we get to make it up. And we kind of get to help write it in a way. And that I love doing. And I work with my director. His name is Juan Meza Leon. He's worked on a bunch of Rick and Morty episodes and a lot of Harley. And he and I, it was like we were little kids with action figures, right? And we're like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool? What if we did this? And then Bane punches him, and then it's like we were making up the fight together. We had to draw it out and then have it be animated. So I'm going to go backwards because I meant to show you guys this first. I don't design the characters. We are given designs. This is the design we had for the bat armor. What these are, it was created first in the comic books, and so the character designers, that's a whole other job in animation, is you have storyboard artists and you have character designers who their job is just to decide what the characters look like. They looked at the comics for inspiration and sort of simplified it into this. So that is the design we had for Batman. And this is the actual model sheet that we still use now for Bane. Model sheets are pretty standard in animation. And it's so that anyone, any animator, any board artist will know what Bane looks like from almost any angle. So we have this front view we have this 3/4 view, a side view, and then a back 3/4. That's called a turnaround, and it really helps, because if we just see the front, we don't know what Bane's back looks like. Now we do with the turnaround. So between that and having the 3D model for the shipyard where the fight takes place, the board artist's job is to put it all together and come up with the shots, the acting of the characters, the poses, the camera moves, and tell the story. Let me see. Do we have an example of the back? No, but let's open this. What all these storyboards get turned into is something called an animatic. Who here has heard that term before? Okay, so you know what it is. It's basically a slideshow of your storyboard panel with sometimes, well, mostly dialogue, sometimes sound effects and music. And it looks like basically primitive animation. All right, open with, there we go. I'm going to try to play it loud. Okay. After all the storyboards are done, then you can watch it back. Something we couldn't do when storyboards were drawn one panel at a time on paper, that we can do now, because we use a software program called Storyboard Pro. It's made by this company in Canada, and we are basically making the animatic in the program. We're drawing one panel at a time. We're adjusting how long that panel is on screen for. We're adding the soundtrack behind it. So here's what the whole thing looks like. Okay, that was about three and a half minutes. You can see the fully animated segment if you look up Batman versus Bane, Harley Quinn. You can see it on YouTube. There were some minor tweaks they made from that. One of my favorite things about that part was Bane's costume from when he was created was to look like a Mexican luchador, a wrestler, right? Bane's just big, strong guy, or in the live action movies, this explosive guy, master planner. We decided, because Juan Leon, the director, was born in Mexico, we're like, let's make him a wrestler and have him do wrestling moves. So that's why he did like a pile driver and an elbow drop and, all these. That wasn't in the script. That's where we got to kind of take the basis and enhance from that. I know it wasn't exactly clear. There's also a process before we get to the final drawings. How many of you here are artists by a show of hands? Most of you, right? How many of you, before you do a nice illustration or drawing, do a thumbnail drawing first? Right, just like a loose sketch, real small, sort of helps you. It's like a very rough draft, right? Before I did any part of this on my computer, I filled pages full of little thumbnail drawings so I could get each shot out of my brain. When I'd read the script, I'd visualize it, and then I'd sketch it down. And I'd do that for every single shot. And there were probably 100, 150 different times we cut, right? So that's my first draft. Then the next process is to draw it into the computer using a Cintiq tablet that Wacom makes. And I do a rough version there. And then the storyboard goes to the director and the supervising director, and it gets notes. They're like, we like these scenes. Why don't we change that scene or move it over here or redraw it from a different angle? And once we apply those notes, we then clean up the storyboard into that finished form that you see in the animated. So just like with a lot of paintings or comics, you do a rough version first, and then it gets progressively tighter and better as you go. It gets turned into this schematic, gets sent to executives who give us more notes. So we then have to go and fix it again, and maybe a third time. And then those storyboards in digital form and automatic get shipped to animation studios overseas, where it's outsourced, basically. Have you guys heard that term, outsourcing? TV animation was doing it before it was a popular thing. It's cheaper to pay poor animators overseas to do all that hard work, all the in-betweening, than it is to pay American animators. So once we get the finished animation back from overseas, we'll do a little more post-production and tweaking, add music, and then it is ready for air. But I would say the storyboard artist has one of the most important jobs. We have to tell that story. We have to turn those words into images so the audience knows what's happening and what's going on. So let us, hang on, I'm going to show you guys examples. These are kind of old storyboards. This was from G.I. Joe Resolute. Here, I'm going to blow them up. So this is way back in 2008 or 9 when we still had to draw with pencil on paper. And I had to redraw this background with a light box over and over. And, this is all the same scene. All the Joes are kind of running out of this building while they're getting fired on. This would indicate a camera move where basically we would start from where they ran off screen, and then the camera would pan up and kind of tilt to reveal the bad guys shooting at them. I'm not going to narrate the whole thing, or that would take too long, but it's a lot of drawings. One of the big differences between comic books and storyboards, they have a lot of similarities. But in comic, if it's a 22 page comic, each page averages about 6 panels. So that's about 120 unique drawings, right, for one issue. In storyboards, for a 22-minute episode of television, then you're getting 1,200 individual unique drawings, right? So you're doing more drawings per story. Yeah.
Per episode.
That's a great question. In fact, we're going to move into questions right now. It used to be we would get 4 weeks. 4 weeks, 2 weeks to rough and get notes, and then 2 weeks to clean it all up. That's with a team of 3 people and 1 director. That was not enough time. We were dying. Now it's more like 6, 7, 8 weeks. We're doing fewer episodes a season, but they're also expecting us to do more poses, more drawings. Here, I'll change to a different bit of animation. Here's Batman. So they're asking us to do more drawings in those 8 weeks, but it's still way easier than the 4. So that's about the time. We get about twice the time. Comic artists, to keep a monthly schedule, which is another thing that's insane. They need to pay comic artists more to do better work slower. They have to do a page a day at least, and that's a lot. Here's some boards from the Batman.
Oh.
This is the Penguin making his escape on his umbrella copter. He stole this bird statue. Him reacting to Batman and Robin swinging down.
They died.
Let's do that again. They're gonna get him, but all of a sudden these batarangs fly out of nowhere and cut their lines, and the camera pans down. Any other questions about storyboarding? You in the back there.
On the topic of crunching time of 20 minutes,
Yes.
what are your favorite tricks on extending a scene, to make it fit the time constraint? You have favorite, yeah.
Right. It's rare that we're under time. They usually overwrite the scripts, we board it all, and then we have to figure out what to cut out. Which is good. That's how live action film is shot. They shoot way more than they need so that they can chop it up and really make it tight. With animation, you don't want to over animate because that gets expensive. You do your editing in this phase, in the animatic phase. But if we had a chance, we had a 22-minute episode that we only had 20 minutes for, then we get to extend fight scenes and action scenes. That's my favorite part.
Or they might get to put in a song with the scene.
You could make it a musical scene, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes? Yes.
Per second and stuff. How many storyboards?
Per second. It's much fewer during dialogue scenes. And I've had to, when I was a director, I've had to tell my board artists to stop animating because Storyboard Pro, you can put in as many panels per second as you want, down to one frame. I'm like, don't do panels that are shorter than like 4. You're doing the animator's job for them, and it's killing our deadlines. So on average, though, I'd like to not do more than 3 poses per second of movement. Hell, even 2. But if it's a real intricate, complicated thing, you can end up doing 6 or 10 or 12, but you shouldn't. That's animation, not storyboard, right? We're supposed to be the guide, the instruction manual for the animators, not the animators. So, yes.
Notice that a lot of the drawings are simple. Well, Harley Quinn is a very simplified tool, but with the Batman, like I remember that they were like, it was like really, really anime inspired, like a lot of like crazy action. And I was wondering when should you know when do you know to add like those crazy action things or to add more detail to the characters and stuff?
Do you mean add more detail to the drawing or to the story?
Both.
Okay. So the question is about detail, either to the art or to the story. When it's a fight scene, we overboard and let them cut out what they don't want. That's the chance for us to shine. As far as how finished to make the drawings and storyboards, you can do basic figures as long as you can tell one character from the other. Some artists do it by coloring each character a block like blue or red or yellow and let the animators do the hard part of all the detail. Since I came from comics, I think it's locked into my head. I want every panel to look like a comic panel, and it kills me. It's what's called pencil mileage. The amount of time you're drawing. It takes a long time and your hand gets sore. So simpler is better for storyboards, unless you're insane, like me. So you've had your hand up a while in the back. Yes?
What's that? Games have you ever done cutscenes for games?
Cutscenes for, funny you should ask. I did used to work doing storyboards for video games. For Electronic Arts, I worked on the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King video game. And it wasn't just storyboarding the movies that happened between levels. We actually had to storyboard out levels. Like with the tiny character in the bottom of the screen, we were drawing a lot of environments and bad guys, and we were boarding out what a perfect play of the level would look like. And I did one for the Superman Returns movie with Brandon Routh. My storyboards, I'm not proud to say this, my storyboards killed half the game. Here's why. By storyboarding it and making an animatic, that helps the developers see, oh shit, we're gonna have to build this much, of new villains, new assets. It's gonna cost a ton of time and money. So based on my storyboards, they pulled levels out of the game. It was supposed to be like Grand Theft Auto Metropolis. And it turned into the game it is now, which got mixed reviews. So I also storyboarded cutscenes on that. Yeah. So questions, let's start from the back and you 4. Yes. You. Yes. Can you come up here? Sure.
Rewrite each
or their work is cut out, you know?
Any advice for beginning storyboard artists? It's tricky, right? It's, well, the first thing is having a portfolio. Examples. Just because you can draw doesn't mean you know how to do storyboards, right? Art is one thing, sequential art is another. So my advice is look at storyboard examples on the internet and absorb as much as you can, right? There are lots of animatics, and I actually need to consult with my kid about what are good programs for making your own animatics and your own portfolio sites, and I'm going to do a program on that tomorrow. So if you can, come back to that. Okay. Storyboard Pro is the industry standard, but it's expensive. It costs like $500 or $1,000 for a license, and they ask for a couple $100 every year. If you're in the industry, usually your studio covers it, but learning, it's really tricky. Trav, what's a good program to make your own animatics? Okay. Flip a clip. Flip a clip. Yeah.
Follow like an entire animation on it, export it, and then what you could do is you could go to an editing like app where you could then put in all frames and cut them. Like if you want one frame to be like 1 second, or if you want two, or you want a frame to be like 2 seconds, then you can like space it out.
Okay. All right. Super. With the pink mask back there. I need you to come. I'm so sorry. You're speaking loud. It's just we're competing against Dance Dance Revolution.
It's a fast show.
Is it?
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I have similar questions. Like, what are studios looking for in terms of like storyboarding portfolios, and what would you advise would make a really good storyboard portfolio that stands out?
That is what the topic is for tomorrow's program, and I'm still putting it together. Here's the thing: I haven't had to make a portfolio. Well, no, that's not true. I have a site, Vimeo, and I put up animatics of my various sequences, some of my favorite boards up on that. Have them up on YouTube, Tumblr. I'm giving you a synopsis of what I'm going to say tomorrow, but the trick is making an animatic.
Yeah.
Because now looking at, scrolling down panel after panel to show your drawn storyboards, that's kind of outdated now. Now it's making your animatics through whatever software you can afford, and putting them online. Okay, but I'll get into more detail tomorrow. For sure. Okay? Yes. Yeah. What's my favorite? Well, Harley Quinn has the best scripts. They're funny. They're the only scripts I've read and laughed out loud. I literally LOL while I was reading them. But I also loved working on this G.I. Joe show. Just something about the style of the characters and the stories. I'm kind of nostalgic. I'm old, so I grew up with G.I. Joe, the minifigures. I'm not so old. They used to have Barbie-sized G.I. Joes. With like actual fuzzy hair. That was around when I was born. But that was a blast. I got to work on a Star Wars short. They did these 1 minute Power of the Force clips a few years ago. Harley and Kite Man have been great. Let me think. I got to work on 5 minutes of Invincible, which is a pretty awesome show. So We're getting close to the end, so we'll take 3 more questions. Oh, gee. One, you two had your hands up, and then I'll go 3 here. I'm sorry. Come back tomorrow or come to my table. I have a table in the autograph area, and any questions I didn't get to, I'll be more than happy to answer then. Yes?
What's the hardest?
To me, the hardest part is cleaning up. I love conceiving and thumbnailing and doing that first draft, the roughs where I draw quick and not as clean. But the time it takes to then go back over those lines and make them still look alive. Because I don't know if you guys who are artists find this, the rough drawing has life, it has vitality. And every time you go over and over that line, it loses a little something. And there are some brilliant manga artists who keep that vitality even in the ink line. There's an American artist, Daniel Warren Johnson. Look him up. He's heavily manga influenced and he's brilliant. His drawings move and they're on a flat page. So my least favorite part is cleaning up the lines. Okay, what was your question?
So just get this out really well. What would be your advice on like being able to? I'm really bad at word movies, but like going between so many different animation and like different styles, and trying to like replicate that.
Right. No, that's a really interesting question because I have my own style. I don't love it, but I made it a practice early on. One of the ways I learned to draw was by replicating other artists' images and absorbing what their techniques are. And I actually worked on a comic book called Elf Quest, which has been around since the 70s. And apparently I grew very close to the original creator's style. So yeah, people thought my style was one of the closest. How to develop that is practice drawing different styles. Don't stick to fully realistic. Don't stick to super cartoony. Try everything. Practice drawing SpongeBob and then drawing Batman the Animated Series. And how do you learn to be versatile? And that's why I was scrunching my face when you were asking the question, is I've never had to think about how you get good at that. I just got good at it. And I'm not perfect at it. There's some words where I'm like, ooh, way off on the style. And the more you do it, the better you get. But what helps is if you want to replicate a style, look at that style, have it in front of you, taped up on the wall in front of your desk, on your computer screen, constantly reference back. How do they draw eyes? How do they draw hands? How do they draw clothing? And you'll pick up that style a lot easier. At the same time, don't forget to develop your own style, because that can get lost. You can be great at drawing 50 different styles. What's yours? Okay, last question.
So it sounds like it's the storyboarder who's mostly responsible for blocking the scenes and so forth. Is that like actually a collaboration with the director, or you get the first bite at the apple?
That's perfectly put. The question is, do board artists come up with staging or composing each shot? That's usually a director's job in live action. As a board artist, you get the first stab at the apple of directing the show. Then the director fine-tunes them, but you're hired because you know how to compose a shot, how to tell a story visually, how to pace it, or you learn on the job. I kind of had to do that, but we get that first shot. And it's awesome. Comic artists get that as well. Sometimes the writer will write out in every small detail, the angle, what's in every panel. that's not as fun. But yeah, we have to visually tell the story, not just with each shot, but how it's paced, how the characters act. It's my favorite part of animation. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. Try to have my visuals better next time I do this. Thanks again for bearing with me being late. And any questions you have that I didn't answer, I'll be downstairs today and tomorrow. Okay.